So some days I wrestle with the idea, should I show them this or should I show them that? Which story should I tell? This is not one of those days. This was a day of Ukraine's most devastating, massive drone strike on Russia since the beginning of the war. So I'm going to get to that in just a second. It is Tuesday, January 14th, 2025. My name is Darren Gerdes, just a professor that tries to provide context in the war in Ukraine. So let's get started here with the normal update on battlefield casualties, which are enormously lower, can I say that? Significantly lower than what they normally are. 1330, that seems so low compared to where we've been. It's amazing. 1330 Russians off the battlefield, 3 tanks, 11 armored fighting vehicles, 47 artillery systems, and 83 vehicles and fuel tanks. So that's low for the last 2 or 3 months, but it would have been high for last year and very high for the year before. Okay, let's keep going. Overnight, Russia launched 80 Shahed drones into Ukraine. A total of 58 were shot down, 21 more suppressed by electronic warfare. So 58 and 21 is going to be 79. 79 out of 80 were actually knocked down. So I didn't see anything about like hits here and there in the news. Now, what Ukraine did to Russia, on the other hand, well, that's a whole different story. Let's look at this. Ukraine launched a massive attack. This is Radio Free Europe, a massive attack on targets inside Russian territory on January 14th, hitting weapons, production plants, oil refineries, and warehouses. A little bit more. This is Noel reports. Overnight, more than 100 drones attacked Russia, with explosions reported in 12 regions. Airports in 4 cities were closed under the carpet plan. Russian sources, they claim that there's up to 200 drones and ATACMS missiles were involved in the attack. Kyiv Post, over 200 Ukrainian drone strikes key Russian targets, explosive plants, fuel depots, and more. Massive fires at at least seven Russian regions. Air travel disrupted. And here's an article from the Kyiv Post talking about it. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine officially confirmed the largest strike on Russian military targets, ranging from 200 to 1,000 or 1,100 kilometers inside Russian territory. Key regions hit include Bryansk, Saratov, Tula, and Tatarstan. That's key regions. That's not all of them. There was a lot. I mean, this was big. This was the biggest Ukrainian strike on Russian territory in the war. The Bryansk chemical plant was one of the biggest. It produces ammunition for barrel artillery, multiple launch rocket systems, aviation, engineering ammunition, and components of the X-59 cruise missiles. 2 Russian anti-aircraft systems, Tor and Buk, were also destroyed. Ukrainian forces, including drones, special ops, missile units, and intelligence, coordinated these strikes. The SBU and Defense Forces conducted a targeted operation, resulting in significant damage to several key Russian facilities, including chemical plants, refineries, and the Engels Airfield. That's different than the Engels oil depot. Key sites across Russia were hit. Chemical plant in the Tula region, Engels Airfield. At the Engels Airfield, they hit ammunition depots storing glide bombs and cruise missiles. So that's great because there's a magnifying effect. You can't use those things that have just been destroyed. So this is very positive. Saratov oil refinery. Again, it just went out or was just about out. And then Bryansk chemical plant. Now, the Russians are claiming that there were over 200 Ukrainian drones involved in this action. The Russian Telegram channel, Airborne Forces for Honesty and Justice, really, that's the name, widely believed to be linked to the armed forces of Ukraine, reported that over 200 Ukrainian drones were in action. So that's what happened there. That's a pretty impressive hit. A little bit about it. Here's an image of the Bryansk chemical plant. I understand that if you're on Spotify, you're not going to be able to see this. By the way, I have we're almost 10,000 streams now on Spotify. I just started this about a month ago. I was putting out an alternative. Some of you were saying things like, Yeah, I listen to you on my ride to work, and then I just turn over my phone. I just turn it upside down so I'm not tempted to look at it while No, listen on Spotify if you're in that category. So almost 10,000 streams, 1,687 consumption hours in the last 30 days, 150 followers out on Spotify. So it doesn't matter to me if you listen there or listen here and watch that either way, as long as you're consuming the news and being able to understand what's going on in Ukraine. So feel free to make that choice. All right. Ukrainian unmanned systems forces confirmed the strike on Bryansk chemical plant. First, this is how it happened. First, drones distracted the Russian air defense, which opened the way for a missile strike, and then long distance drones destroyed more of the plant's infrastructure. So, okay, apparently that's how it worked. The strike was carried out in cooperation between unmanned systems forces, defense intelligence, special operations forces, security service, and other divisions of the Ukrainian defense forces. So that's how that all went down. All right. Now Saratov a few minutes ago. Here's just an image of it, a still, but that's not. Those aren't clouds. That's smoke. Okay, Russia, liquefied gas depot struck by Ukrainian drones at the chemical plant in Kazan. Now, Kazan is 1,200 kilometers from Ukraine. So that's another big thing. Like, if they can hit that deep into Russia, it's going to start messing with their psyche eventually. Only a day after Russians finally put out the week-long fire at the 800,000-ton capacity fuel depot at Engels military airfield, it's been hit again. The storage facility held rare fuel for Russia's long-range strategic bomber fleet that regularly rains missiles onto the people of Ukraine. So it was like 6 days worth of burning, and then it was just about out yesterday. And I calculated how much in yesterday's video in the daily brief. I calculated how much that would have cost if it was 800,000. Now, Jay in Kiev is telling us that a day after the Russians spent a week putting out fires that consumed 20% of the 800,000-ton fuel storage depot. Okay, so I calculated the 800,000, but even then, if it only took out 20% of it in the previous strike, that's still $86 million worth of damage that was done to it before it got hit again today. So that's something. Okay. Russia now lacks the air defense to deal with the volume of Ukrainian drones targeting its gas and oil industry, flying totally unencumbered into several regions. Yeah, and of course they can do this because there's just like I've said this before, but Russia is a big country. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. That's what's going to happen. It's almost impossible to guard everything worth guarding in Russia. Okay, so let's turn our attention to the battlefield update here. And what's happened yesterday is that the Russians have spent a lot of time focusing on Pokrovsk, and it looks like they just cut off two major highways that the Ukrainians will need or depend on. The Russian forces recently cut the T-0405 Pokrovsk-Konstantinivka highway east of Pokrovsk and the T-0406 Pokrovsk-Meshova highway south of Pokrovsk as part of their efforts to envelop Pokrovsk. So that's bad. That's not good news at all. They keep chipping away at it. And now, how are they doing this? So Michael McKay is the guy that I show sometimes, who shows like there's 6 attacks here and 7 attacks there and 13 attacks there and 40 attacks in Pokrovsk. Yesterday in Pokrovsk, 74 attacks. 74. Now, I'm telling you that to tell you this, like when we look at the casualties for the day, it was down, it was low, it was 1330, and yet we see 74 attacks around Pokrovsk. So that was apparently where they spent most of their time. The Russians also advanced, according to the ISW, advanced near Kharkiv, Borova, Kharkov, and Velika Novosilka direction. So they've been like at it on the battlefield. But again, the big news today was that massive Ukrainian drone attack. Now, South Korea's national intelligence is confirming that there are at least or roughly 3,000 killed or wounded North Koreans. So Zelensky said that last week, and South Korea's estimates were still about a little over 1,000, and they've just updated that. So to confirm what Zelensky said last week. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, this is just an image of a guy driving down the road. And as you look left and right, you're seeing just devastation. Like the trees are gone. There's a IFV or a tank every 50 meters or so as he's driving, like just burned out on the side of the road. And you'll see like these trees are. It's just devastation everywhere you go. That's what the battlefield looks like. And it's almost reminiscent of like what you saw out of the Lord of the Rings, why Treebeard was upset in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, if you watched that or read the book. It's just devastation everywhere you go. Okay, some other news. These guys that are standing here on trial, they are Ukrainians who are on trial because Moscow is sentencing 7 Ukrainian soldiers to prison terms ranging from 15 to 16 years for taking part in the Kursk offensive. No, no, no. They should be prisoners of war. If they are captured, they're treated as prisoners of war. But no, no, no. That's not what they're doing. The soldiers, members of the 202nd Battalion of the 103rd Territorial Defense Brigade, were charged under Russia's anti-T laws. No, they're not that. I'm not going to say that word here for YouTube. They're not that. They are combatants, and they should be accorded the rights of prisoners of war. Okay, German Defense Minister Pistorius has arrived in Kyiv for talks. His visit was not announced in advance. Pistorius stated that he wants to discuss further support for Ukraine and gain an understanding of the situation on the front lines. So, welcome, Mr. Pistorius. And this kind of thing never gets old. Fighters of the 1129th Anti-Aircraft Missile Regiment have destroyed 3 reconnaissance UAVs. I never tire of watching a drone knock down another drone. I don't know why. Maybe something's wrong with me, but I just find this kind of thing fascinating. Darth Putin says on day 1057, can you imagine 1057 already, of my 3-day war? Bad news, Gazprom are cutting 1,600 jobs. I saw estimates that were higher than that. I saw upwards of 2,000, but nonetheless, 1,600 jobs due to war. Good news, there are 1,600 more volunteers who can die in the war that caused their jobs to be cut. I remain a master strategist. And finally, we'll leave you with this. Ukrainian tankers are wishing you a great Tuesday. So I wish them a great Tuesday. Be safe, guys, and thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, and the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.